What's a bottom feeder like you doing in my house? That's how my own son greeted me on Christmas Eve. No warning, no hello, just those words, sharp as broken glass, slicing straight through the man who raised him. The laughter behind him died. A room full of strangers stared at me like I was some vagrant who'd lost his way in the snow. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, my blood ran cold. I built that cabin with my own hands. Every beam, every stone, every memory of my late wife Linda carved into its walls. And now my son stood there, calling it his. It felt like watching a thief steal your past while you're still breathing. Ever been betrayed by your own blood? Stick with me, because what happened next that night in Lake Tahoe will make you question everything you think you know about family, forgiveness, and being a man. Subscribe, and don't look away. The lockbox hung open, its jaw cracked wide. The code light blinked green. Alarm dead. Someone had been living easy inside my walls. Mud smeared the welcome mat like footprints at a grave. The air was thick with bourbon and roast meat. Holiday music cranked loud enough to cover guilt. Every sound in that cabin used to be mine. The creak of old timber, the hum of quiet peace. Now it felt invaded. Heat rolled out from the doorframe, pressing against the cold behind me. I could feel the split. Outside, the life I'd built. Inside, the life someone stole. I tightened my fist around the doorknob. Then laughter cracked through the music. His laugh. I stepped over the threshold and whispered, "Who let you into my house?" The music stopped mid-note. The silence that answered me didn't sound afraid. It sounded familiar. And that was the worst sound of all. The firelight touched what didn't belong. Linda's picture, crooked, half hidden behind a wreath of plastic glitter. Her smile, once steady, now shadowed. My bourbon, uncorked, bleeding amber across the rim. Bottles, crumbs, laughter. They had built a holiday over the grave of mine. I crossed the floor slow, boots grinding glass into wood we'd sanded together 15 winters ago. Everything smelled wrong. Cheap perfume mixed with the ghost of Linda's cinnamon candles. I set her photo back where it belonged, center of the mantel, the way she liked it, watching over everything. My heart hit hard, like a hammer testing weak beams. And just then, I heard it again. That laugh. Closer this time, confident, careless. The kind of laugh you only make when you think you own the place. I turned toward it, already knowing whose voice it was, praying I was wrong. But I'd never forget that sound. He was standing by the fire, my son, holding my bourbon like it was his birthright. Our eyes met, and the room folded in on itself. The guests went still, glances bouncing between us, waiting for someone to blink first. He didn't. A woman moved in front of him, protective, claiming territory with her silence. Her ring flashed in the light. Melissa, his wife, the same one who'd never called me dad. I saw recognition cut across his face, panic, calculation, then that smug little smirk he got from his mother's side of the mirror. Every inch of him said, "You can't touch me anymore." My throat burned with everything I wanted to say, but only one word came out. "Ethan." He froze. The fire popped, one ember bursting into sparks. He looked down, swallowed, then forced a laugh. And what came next burned worse than the whiskey he held. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" he said louder, like volume made it true. A woman gasped. Someone dropped a glass. I took a step closer, slow, steady. "Ethan," I said, "this isn't funny." He laughed, short, nervous, then louder. "I don't know who you are, old man, but you need to leave before I call the cops." Old man. The words hit harder than the cold outside. My hands clenched before I even noticed. "Your house?" I whispered. "You serious?" He looked around at his audience, playing them like a cheap crowd. "Yeah," he said, louder now. "My house. Family property. Guess this guy wandered in from the road." The room chuckled weakly, unsure which side to take. Then he looked right at me, smile gone, eyes hard. "You're just a crazy old man." The room went silent. Something inside me cracked, but it wasn't fear. It was something deeper, older, something waking up. The older couple finally stood. The man's name, I'd later learn, was Tom Miller. He looked like someone who'd built things for a living, hands thick, voice calm, but cutting. "Ethan," he said, "who is this man?" Ethan's jaw tightened. Nobody, probably confused. The woman beside him, Diane, shook her head slowly, eyes darting from me to the family photo above the fireplace. Linda and me, back in '09. "That looks like him." Melissa's fingers trembled around her wine glass. "Ethan, what's going on?" I took a breath, forced myself to speak evenly. "Name's Jack Whitmore. I built this cabin with my wife, Linda." Tom frowned. "Whitmore," he said, testing the name on his tongue. "Same last name as yours, son." The air went tight, sharp as glass. Ethan looked down, muttering something about coincidence, but no one was buying it. For the first time that night, I saw doubt crawl across their faces and straight into his. Tom's eyes narrowed. "You said only family had the code to this place." I felt every head turn toward me. "That's right," I said, "only family." The silence stretched. Melissa looked at Ethan. "Wait, how does he know the code?" Ethan's mouth opened, no words ready. He laughed once, dry, fake. "Must have watched me put it in." Tom took a step forward. "Through the camera? In the dark? From the road? Come on, son. Try again." The color drained from Ethan's face. He stammered, "He's been stalking us, okay? Some nutcase from town." Melissa flinched at the word stalking. Tom didn't move. "You disarmed the alarm yourself, Ethan. I saw you." The room went cold. Every lie he'd told was starting to sweat through his shirt. I didn't need to say a word. The question hung heavy between us, loud as thunder. If I wasn't family, how did I walk straight through that door? Ethan found his voice again, slick and rehearsed. "This cabin was my grandfather's," he said. "Passed down to me 2 years ago." Tom blinked, confused. Diane's brow furrowed. "Grandfather?" she asked quietly. "You never mentioned one." He shrugged. "Didn't think it mattered." I laughed once, short, bitter. "You didn't have a grandfather who owned this land," I said, calm but cold. "Your grandparents died in Ohio before you were born." Melissa turned to him, her voice barely holding together. "Ethan, is that true?" He waved her off, the way cowards do when truth gets too close. "He's lying. He's delusional." The air in that room grew heavy, the fire crackling like it wanted to get away from us. Tom looked from me to Ethan and back again, pieces clicking into place behind his eyes. Diane's voice cut through the silence. "Ethan, you never mentioned a grandfather at all." The lie hung there, naked and ugly, between a son and the man who'd taught him to tell the truth. I'd had enough. "Stop," I said quietly. "This isn't a story. This is my life you're stealing." All eyes turned toward me. "I'm his father," I said. "Jack Whitmore. I built this cabin 15 years ago with my wife Linda. Every nail, every stone, every beam in this place, picked and placed by my own hands. The only sound was the fire and the faint ticking of a cheap holiday clock on the wall. Linda died here," I added, my voice breaking but steady. "This house was her peace." Melissa's face drained of color. She turned to Ethan, searching for something in his eyes that wasn't there. "Is it true?" she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. His silence was louder than any confession. Tom looked at him with something close to pity. Diane with something worse, disgust. And that's when I realized the crowd wasn't his shield anymore. It had become his mirror. Melissa's hand shook as she reached for her phone. "I'm calling the police," she said, her voice small but shaking. Ethan lunged forward. "No! Wait, there's no need for that!" But she was already dialing. I raised a hand. "Go ahead," I told her. "Let's get this straight once and for all." Outside, snow fell harder, wind pressing against the windows like it wanted in on the fight. The fire snapped, sparks flying up the chimney, and the smell of pine mixed with fear. Ethan was pacing now, muttering, eyes darting toward the door like a trapped animal. Diane whispered, "Maybe that's best." Tom nodded, jaw tight. Then we all heard it, the distant echo of a siren winding through the trees, getting closer, slicing through the night air. Ethan froze, his mask slipping for the first time. And in that quiet moment before the lights reached the cabin, every lie he'd told began to unravel, one flake at a time. The red and blue lights bled through the snow before the knock came, 3 hard raps that made everyone flinch. Sergeant Reynolds stepped in first, broad shoulders, steady eyes. "Evening, we got a report of a break-in." Officer Brooks followed, scanning the room like she was measuring truth by body language. Ethan jumped in. "Yes, officers, this man forced his way in, claiming this house is his." Reynolds turned to me. "Sir, name?" "Jack Whitmore," I said, voice even. "I can prove ownership." Ethan moved fast, blocking the door. "He's lying. Don't listen to him." Reynolds didn't blink. "Proof settles that. You have papers, Mr. Whitmore?" "In my truck," I said, nodding toward the window. The sergeant gave a slow nod. "Then let's take a look." His tone carried the kind of authority that ends stories or starts new ones. Outside, the siren echo faded. Inside, the truth was just getting warmed up. We walked out together through the snow, every step crunching louder than the next lie waiting to fall apart. From my truck, I pulled the manila folder, the one Linda used to tease me for guarding like gold. Inside, the deed from 2009, building permits, insurance forms, tax receipts, even the final inspection report signed by my own hand. Reynolds laid them across the coffee table, flashlight sweeping over every seal and signature. No one spoke. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the scratch of his glove against paper. After a long moment, he looked up. "These are authentic." His eyes cut toward Ethan. "They list Jack Whitmore as the legal owner since 2009. The silence that followed was colder than the wind outside. Melissa's lip trembled, Tom's jaw set, and just like that, my son's kingdom turned to dust under official ink. Melissa's face went pale first. Then Tom's head turned toward Ethan, eyes sharp, voice low. "You lied to us." Diane stepped back, hand over her chest. The guests shifted, avoiding his gaze, their smiles gone. Ethan tried to laugh, but sweat broke along his temples. There's been a mistake." Officer Brooks crossed her arms. "A mistake?" Her tone sliced cleaner than a blade. "Because these documents look pretty clear." No one rescued him this time. Melissa's voice came out small, shaking. "Why would you do this?" Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came, only the sound of him trying to breathe through the wreckage of his own story. Brooks tilted her head. "Why lie, Ethan?" The question hung there, thick and final. He looked at me, eyes wide like a cornered child, but I didn't move. For the first time in his life, there was no one left to talk him out of the truth. I stared at him across the room, the same boy I taught to ride a bike, now standing like a stranger with my last name. "You called me a bottom feeder," I said quietly, "in my own house." He looked away, jaw tight, eyes darting toward the window like he might find an escape out there. I saw flashes of him at 8 years old, mud on his face, laughing in the yard while Linda took pictures. She'd whispered once, "Promise me you'll take care of him, no matter what." I'd kept that promise, maybe too well. My chest felt tight, like the air was full of nails. "I built this place for you to remember her," I said, "and you filled it with lies." He rubbed the back of his neck, pretending to be calm. "Can you explain that to me, Ethan?" For a second I thought he might. Then he looked up and doubled down. He took a breath, then let the poison drip. "He's been following us for months," Ethan said, pointing at me. "He's obsessed. Ever since he lost Mom, he's gone off the rails." The words hit like small cuts, shallow but relentless. Melissa blinked fast, confused. "Ethan, what are you talking about?" He nodded, fast, desperate. He used to call me 10 times a day, show up at my job, embarrass me. He's not right in the head. Tom's jaw flexed. "That true?" he asked me. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The truth was already standing in front of them, sweating through a lie too big to carry. Diane's voice cracked. "Why would you say that about your own father?" Ethan's mouth opened again, but Officer Brooks cut him off. Her tone was calm, flat, final. "That's not protecting yourself," she said. "That's gaslighting." The word landed like a verdict, and no one spoke after that. I'd stayed silent long enough. Without a word, I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone. The blue glow lit the room like a confession booth. "Let's see who's been supporting who," I said. One tap opened the banking app, years of automatic payments stacked like receipts of denial. "Apartment in Sacramento, $2,800 a month," I read. Tom's head snapped toward Ethan. "Car loan, $847. Melissa's voice cracked. "That's our BMW." I scrolled further. "Health insurance, auto insurance, renters, all under my name, all paid by me." No one moved. The numbers glowed on the screen, proof carved in light. I looked at my son, voice steady. 6 years of this, Ethan. $78,000 a year to keep your life afloat. He swallowed hard. The room held its breath, every lie on the edge of collapse. Even the fire seemed to stop crackling, waiting for what came next. The numbers kept glowing on the screen. 6 years, $78,000 a year. I scrolled further, my voice flat now. Credit cards, 12 grand balance, paid by me. Monthly allowance, 1,500. Utilities, phone, internet, all on my account. Melissa's hand went to her mouth. Tom whispered, "Good God." I'd thought I was helping. I'd told myself I was keeping him safe, giving him time to get on his feet. But looking at those numbers, I saw the truth for the first time. I wasn't saving him. I was feeding the thing that kept him weak. Every payment was a little apology I'd never owed him. 6 years of quiet surrender disguised as love. My throat tightened, but I said it anyway, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I wasn't helping my son," I said. "I was financing his downfall." The words dropped like stones in the silence. For the first time, Ethan looked afraid, and he should have been. I opened each account one by one. Thumbprint, tap, cancel. Apartment subsidy, terminated. Ting. Car loan, closed. Ting. Credit card autopay, gone. Ting. Insurance policies, voided. Ting. Each sound was a hammer driving the last nail into the coffin of the man I used to be. The fixer, the rescuer, the enabler. Ethan stepped forward, panic in his eyes. "Dad, please, how am I supposed to—" I didn't look up. "You'll figure it out. You're a grown man now, remember?" The screen flashed a final confirmation. All payments canceled. I locked the phone and slipped it back into my pocket. The air felt cleaner somehow, sharper. "That ends tonight," I said. He opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. For the first time in years, the silence between us wasn't guilt. It was freedom. And freedom, I realized, was never cheap. Sergeant Reynolds cleared his throat. "Mr. Whitmore," he said quietly, "what do you want us to do here?" I looked around the room, at the strangers packing guilt into silence, at the fire still burning, at the walls Linda and I built with our own hands. Her photo watched from the mantel, calm as ever. Then my eyes went back to Ethan. He looked smaller now, like a boy in a man's body, stripped of all the noise and arrogance he used to hide behind. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I took a breath that felt like lifting a mountain. "Pack your things," I said. "All of you." No one moved. Ethan blinked. "Dad, get out of my house." The words came out low, steady, final. Reynolds nodded once, understanding. And as the cabin went quiet again, I realized some battles aren't won by shouting. They're won by walking away first. No one spoke when the officers told them to start packing. Suitcases zipped, sharp and final. Glass ornaments came down from my tree one by one, their hollow clinks filling the room like a funeral bell. Melissa wiped her face, shoulders shaking. Tom wrapped an arm around Diane, whispering something I couldn't hear. Ethan stood still, useless hands hanging at his sides, watching the life he'd borrowed collapse around him. The cabin groaned under the weight of silence, wood settling like it was exhaling all their noise. I didn't move, didn't help, didn't comfort. The last wreath came off the fireplace. My bourbon sat empty on the table, the label peeled halfway, like it didn't want to see what it had witnessed. Then came the sound I'll never forget, the heavy oak door closing behind them. It wasn't slammed in anger, it just shut, solid. And with that sound, the house was mine again, and emptier than ever. The fire burned low, hissing like it had a secret to keep. Glass on the floor caught the glow, Shards of laughter that didn't belong here anymore. Ribbon dangled from a chair leg, a ghost of someone else's Christmas. I poured what was left of the bourbon, sat in the chair Linda loved, and stared at her picture above the mantel. She was back where she belonged, smiling through the smoke. I should have felt peace. Instead, I felt hollow. For years I'd called myself his safety net. But tonight, I was something else entirely. The consequence he'd spent his life running from. I whispered it out loud just to hear the truth take shape. Tonight, I'm the price of his choices. The fire cracked once, a single ember floating upward, fading before it hit the ceiling. Maybe that was mercy. Or maybe it was just what happens when the storm runs out of things to break. Christmas morning came cold and clean. No messages, no visitors. I scrolled my phone, long list of names, no one to call. Outside, the world was postcard perfect. Fresh snow, untouched, like nothing had ever happened. Inside, the silence pressed in, heavy, almost holy. There's a strange kind of loneliness men my age carry, the kind we don't name out loud. We just pour another coffee, check the locks twice, and pretend it's peace. I looked around the cabin, one cup, one plate, one life reduced to singulars. Somewhere between grief and calm, it hit me. Maybe solitude isn't punishment. Maybe it's a mirror. All my life, I mistook noise for connection. Now the quiet was finally telling me the truth. I leaned back, watched the snow keep falling, slow and endless. Being alone, I said to the empty room, might just be the answer after all. I closed my eyes and saw her again. Linda, laughing in the snow that first winter we built the cabin. She wore those red wool gloves, the ones she refused to replace no matter how frayed they got. The air smelled like cinnamon and pine. She'd been baking cookies for the neighbors even though we didn't have any yet. A church choir carried faintly through the valley, the kind of sound that made her stop and listen with her whole heart. She turned to me, cheeks pink from the cold, eyes soft but certain. "Jack," she said, "take care of him." I promised I would. I just didn't understand what she meant. Back then, I thought taking care meant fixing every mess, cleaning every fall. But sitting here now, in the wreckage of what that created, her voice came back clearer than ever. Care isn't covering. Care is letting the light hit what's broken. I woke to a cabin that smelled like smoke and pine and something close to forgiveness. The fire was out, the air sharp with winter. I picked up bottles, folded blankets, swept away the glass that caught the first slice of morning sun. Then I opened the windows. Cold air rushed in, clean, honest, uninvited, but right. I brewed black coffee, the way Linda liked it, bitter enough to make you remember you're alive. At the table, I opened my notebook. The pen felt heavier than usual, but steadier. First line I wrote, "I can't save anyone who doesn't want saving." Then the second, "Start over." Outside, snow slid from the roof, thudding softly into the drifts below. I watched the steam rise from my mug and thought, maybe peace doesn't come all at once. Maybe it arrives in small sounds, like the world learning to breathe again. By noon, I needed motion. The Ford coughed once, then caught, the old radio humming a country song about second chances. The road to Truckee was half ice, half memory, curves I could drive blindfolded. The lake glittered to my right, cold and clean, the kind of beauty that doesn't ask to be admired. Maggie's Diner still leaned on the corner of Main Street, neon buzzing, same smell of bacon grease and burnt coffee. Inside, Maggie gave me that look, half greeting, half knowing. I nodded, sat at the counter. A couple of old-timers laughed about the weather. Someone paid cash, left change on the table. Everything around me just kept going. No one needed rescuing. No one needed fixing. Life moved on without my permission, and somehow, that felt right. I sipped my coffee, bitter and real, and thought, maybe that's the point. The world doesn't fall apart when I stop holding it up. The phone buzzed once, screen lighting up the quiet cabin. "Dad, call me." Just 3 words, simple, familiar, loaded. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen like it weighed 100 pounds. Part of me wanted to call back, just to hear his voice, to make sure he was breathing. But the other part, The one that had finally woken up that Christmas Eve knew exactly where that road led. I pictured his eyes that night, cold, calculating, full of the kind of entitlement I'd spent years feeding. My chest tightened. The fire hissed in the hearth, soft and accusing. I set the phone face down, let it buzz again, then again. Not this time. Not anymore. I turned off the screen, the light vanishing like a door closing. The sound of silence filled the room, and for once, I didn't fight it. By the third day, his messages turned frantic. We're staying in some dump off the highway. Melissa's crying. Her parents won't take our calls. He attached a picture of a motel sign, flickering neon, snow caked on the roof, sadness in every pixel. For a long moment, I just stared at it, feeling something twist in my chest. Tom and Diane had finally cut him off. The lie had burned through every bridge he'd built. I could almost hear Linda's voice, soft but firm. Don't rush to fix what's breaking him, Jack. So I didn't. I just sat there, hands still, heart loud. The urge to rescue clawed at me like an old addiction. But this time, I whispered instead, "This is the lesson." And the lesson was hard, sharp, necessary. Because love without consequence isn't love at all. It's surrender. Day 5 came with another vibration. They won't help us anymore. The Thompsons, nobody will. We're broke. The BMW's scratched. Melissa's losing it. There was a photo attached. His car, dented, parked under a streetlight that made it look smaller than I'd ever seen it. She must have been screaming in the background. I could almost hear it in his words. "Please, Dad, just alone, just for now." I sat there with the phone in my palm, the glow painting my fingers blue. It would have been easy. 2 taps, problem gone, the same cycle, the same lie. But I didn't move. I let the message fade, unread, unreturned. The quiet around me thickened, heavy but right. Sometimes the kindest thing a man can do is nothing at all. So I put the phone down, exhaled slow, and whispered to the dark, "No rescue. Not this time." The number wasn't saved in my phone, just an unfamiliar string of digits glowing in the dark. I hesitated, then answered. "Dad, please don't hang up." His voice was thin, ragged. "We're sleeping in the car. It's freezing." For a second, the image hit too hard. Ethan hunched over the steering wheel, Melissa wrapped in a blanket, their breath fogging the windows of what used to be comfort on wheels. He kept talking fast, like if he stopped, I might disappear. "I'm sorry, okay? I screwed up. Just help us this once." My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my knuckles burned. The cabin air felt too small, too still. I could hear Linda's voice in the back of my head. "You promised to take care of him, not to save him from himself." 3 slow heartbeats passed. I said nothing. Then I ended the call. The silence afterward was deafening and final. Ethan had always chased the image, not the truth. Even before the lies, he lived like the camera was always on him. Designer shoes, rented smiles, the constant hum of needing to look like a man who had it together. On social media, he was self-made, standing beside cars he didn't pay for, posting captions about grind and hustle. But behind every pixel was a debt, financial, emotional, moral. It's a sickness, that kind of pride. The American man's quiet plague, looking successful while falling apart inside. We raise boys to believe that looking weak is worse than being weak, so they borrow strength, borrow money, borrow identity, until there's nothing left to borrow. I scrolled through his old posts that night, the perfect smiles and mountain hashtags. Then I whispered what no filter could fix. Pretending kills for real. And it did. It almost killed my son. The next morning I found the old record player under the stairs, dusty, half forgotten, just like her favorite vinyl, Christmas hymns. When the needle touched down, Linda's voice filled the room again, not her real one, but close enough to fool my heart. I saw her by the first tree we ever decorated here. She'd tied a blue scarf around her neck, humming Silent Night, her breath visible in the cold cabin air. That was the year she said, "God's timing, Jack. It hurts, but it's perfect." I never understood it, until now. I sat there, listening to the record crackle and fade, the music wrapping the room like a warm blanket around an old wound. Tears came easy this time, softer than before. Maybe she'd been right all along. Time doesn't erase pain. It just teaches it to speak a different language. I whispered to the quiet, "Time heals. Truth saves." And for the first time, I believed it. The call came in just after sunset, her voice already cracked before I even said hello. "You ruined everything," she screamed, but it wasn't at me. It was at him. Through the phone, I heard chaos. "You lied to me, Ethan, about the house, about your dad, about everything." He tried to calm her, voice shaky, begging. The sound of doors slamming, metal against metal, her crying cutting through like glass. "You're a liar," she sobbed. "A manipulator. I want out." Then the sharp, hollow thud of a car door slamming shut. The line went quiet except for his breathing, fast, uneven, small. "Dad," he whispered, but I couldn't speak. A click, then nothing. Static filled the line before it went dead. I sat there, holding the phone long after the call ended, the echo of her words still ringing in my ears. His marriage, gone. The sound of a man's life collapsing always starts the same way. Silence. Sunday morning, I found myself outside a little chapel in town, the kind that looked too fragile to survive a Tahoe winter. Inside, the wooden pews creaked like they recognized me. Candles flickered low, their smoke twisting toward the rafters. I sat in the back, hands clasped tight, not sure if I came to talk or just to breathe. For a long while, I said nothing. Then it came out, quiet, honest. "Forgive me," I whispered, "for trying to play God and guide him where I can't." The words felt heavy but right, like setting something down after carrying it too far. I exhaled slow, the sound echoing in the empty room. In that stillness, something inside me finally let go. The guilt of the rescuer, the pride of the fixer. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the savior. Just a man asking for grace and finally meaning it. The lake was black glass that night, silent, endless, reflecting nothing but the cold stars above. Wind rattled the roof, reminding me the world was still moving. Inside, the fire whispered instead of roared, soft enough to think over. I poured one glass of bourbon, just one, and opened my journal. The page stared back, clean, expectant. I wrote, "Love doesn't mean rescue. Sometimes it means release." The pen scratched slow, deliberate. Then another line. "I still love him. I just won't save him." Outside, the wind eased. The fire cracked, small but steady. I took a sip, the burn sharp and grounding, and looked at Linda's picture on the mantel. She'd understand. She always did. For the first time in a long time, the cabin didn't feel haunted. It just felt honest. And that was enough. Somewhere along the road, the world forgot what men like me were built for. These days, a man past 50 is either invisible or a punchline. We're told we're out of touch, that our words don't matter in a world running faster than we ever could. But men like me, who built, who fought, who stayed, we remember what dignity feels like. It's not ego, it's not pride, it's the last bit of ground you stand on when everything else falls apart. When my own son called me worthless, it wasn't just betrayal, it was the death of respect. And for men, that cut runs deeper than love. Society keeps saying masculinity needs to change. Maybe it does. But I'll tell you this, real manhood isn't about dominance or money. It's about integrity. And integrity means drawing a line, even if it costs you blood. I leaned back in my chair, looked at my hands, scarred, steady, and whispered to the dark, "Dignity isn't negotiable." The message came mid-afternoon. "Dad, I'm sorry, I messed up. Things got out of control. Can we talk? Maybe just a small advance, just till next month." He'd typed it like a confession wrapped in manipulation. The words soft, the intent sharp. My thumb hovered over the screen, the same dance we'd done 100 times before. Forgive, send money, repeat. For a second, I almost gave in. The old instinct kicked in, the one that mistakes weakness for love. Then I caught my reflection in the window. I saw the man I used to be, the The one always fixing, always paying, always erasing consequences. Not anymore. My thumb moved, slow and certain, until the screen went blank. Message deleted. The phone felt lighter, my pulse steadier. Sometimes strength isn't what you do, it's what you don't. The next morning I grabbed my old tool bag and started mending what was left. Hinges tightened, floors sanded, curtains replaced. Every creak and nail carried the sound of taking my life back, inch by inch. I hauled out garbage bags of what wasn't mine, empty bottles, torn ribbons, ghosts of a holiday I never invited. By noon, the place smelled like sawdust and pine again, the way it used to when Linda and I built it. I stepped outside, the air clean and sharp. Hung a new sign on the gate, simple black letters on white wood, private property. For years, I'd let people cross every boundary I had, emotionally, financially, spiritually. Not anymore. I locked the gate and listened to the click echo through the quiet mountain air. It wasn't just a sound, it was closure. Maggie poured my coffee without asking, same way she had for 20 years. "Rough winter up there?" she asked, nodding toward the mountains. I just smiled. "Colder than most." A guy 2 stools down started talking, gray beard, worn jacket. "My boy's in rehab again," he said. "Second time this year. I keep hoping he'll make it stick." I nodded, slow. No advice, just understanding. There's a language men like us speak without words, built from silence and coffee steam. He sighed, staring into his cup. "Guess everyone's got their own battle, huh?" "Yeah," I said, my voice steady. "Every man's got his own campaign." Maggie slid the check across the counter, the total small enough to remind me some things still make sense. Outside, the wind carried the smell of snow and diesel, and I realized maybe we all fight the same war, just on different fronts. The email came late afternoon, forwarded from an old contact in Sacramento. Subject line, employment termination. Reason, history of deception. I didn't need to open it to know. Melissa had moved out 2 days earlier. Tom and Diane weren't taking calls. The last thread holding his world together had finally snapped. A few hours later, a voicemail hit my phone. "Dad, please, they let me go. Nobody will hire me now. I know I lied. I know I hurt you. I just need a chance to fix it." His voice cracked, small and unsteady, a sound I hadn't heard since he was a boy afraid of the dark. The message ended with static, like even the signal couldn't hold the weight of his words. For a long time, I just sat there, phone in hand, heart pounding with every beat of silence. So this was rock bottom, and I'd put him there. I placed the phone face down on the table and stepped outside. The snow was melting, dripping from the eaves in slow, rhythmic beats, like time calming itself. The mountains looked softer under the afternoon sun, the kind of peace you can only see after a storm's done its worst. I gripped the railing, the wood rough against my palms, grounding me. The urge to call him back crawled through my chest, a reflex older than reason. But I didn't move. I just breathed, deep, cold, deliberate. "Tough love," I whispered. Linda's words, not mine. Love that doesn't save, just believes. The wind brushed past like a nod from her. For the first time, I realized strength wasn't a roar, it was restraint. The phone stayed silent behind me, and I stayed standing. The memory came soft, like a candle flickering through fog. Linda was sitting on the cabin floor, holding Ethan when he was just a kid, his face sticky from hot cocoa, his laughter spilling everywhere. I'd said, half joking, "I'll always take care of him, no matter what." She looked up at me, eyes steady, calm, but sharp. "Jack," she said, "don't confuse love with rescue." Back then, I just smiled and kissed her forehead. Always, I'd promised. I didn't understand, not yet. It took me 30 years and a broken Christmas to realize what she meant. Love isn't about shielding someone from consequences. It's about standing far enough back to let them face their own storm. I closed my eyes and saw her smile again, proud, knowing. I'd failed that lesson for years. But now, finally, I'd learned it. Too late for her, but just in time for me. The week that followed felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. I woke before dawn, stepped outside into air sharp enough to clean the soul. Walked the shoreline where the ice had begun to break, each crack sounding like forgiveness. Repaired the loose step by the porch, tightened the latch that had always stuck. Small things, but mine again. In the evenings I read from the little Bible Linda left by our bed. Words about grace and endurance, simple, solid, real. Nights came cold, but my sleep came easy. No dreams of shouting, no ringing phone, no guilt gnawing under my ribs. For the first time in years, my body relaxed. The cabin creaked in the wind like it was breathing again. Peace didn't announce itself. It just arrived quietly, one sunrise at a time. The message came on a Wednesday afternoon, from Melissa. Jack, I filed. It's over. I'm dividing what's left. Ethan knows. Please don't reach out. Below that, nothing. No anger, no apology, just the kind of finality that doesn't need punctuation. I set the phone down, staring at it like it might explain itself. Through the window, Tahoe lay still, frozen mirror, no ripples, no mercy. I thought of Tom and Diane, their disappointment too heavy for words. I thought of Ethan standing somewhere with no wife, no home, no job. A man stripped bare by his own reflection. I didn't feel triumph, only the dull ache of reality settling in. So this was the cost of truth. Cold, clean, unarguable. I whispered to no one. His marriage is gone. Then I turned off the phone and let the silence carry the rest. I started writing it on a rainy morning, the kind that turns the lake silver and still. Ethan, I began, and for a moment the word itself hurt. I wrote about the days he followed me around the workshop, too small to lift a hammer but determined to try. About the first time he slipped on the dock, scraped his knees, and how I'd told him, "Get up, son, you're fine." Back then I thought I was teaching toughness. Maybe I was teaching silence. I wrote about the smell of sawdust, the sound of his laughter when Linda clapped for the birdhouses we built. Halfway through, the ink blurred. I couldn't tell if it was the paper or my eyes. I folded the letter carefully, smoothing the creases flat. Then I slipped it into the drawer beside my bed, where Linda's Bible used to rest. Some words are meant to be written, not delivered. Maybe one day he'll earn the right to read them. Spring brought odd jobs and quiet purpose. I helped a neighbor patch his roof, hands steady, breath visible in the cold air. He paid me $40 and half a burger. I told him it was more than enough. The sweat on my back froze under my shirt, and it felt good, earned, clean. Later, I ate at the counter of a roadside shack, burger grease mixing with sawdust on my palms. No meetings, no deadlines, no saving anyone but myself. I watched trucks roll by on the highway, all headed somewhere louder than this life. I didn't envy them. There was something holy in simplicity, in work that ends when the light fades and hunger means food tastes better. I finished the burger, wiped my hands, and smiled to myself. Simple living, I said under my breath, is still living. And for once, that was enough. By April, the snow melted from the roof, dripping steady like a clock learning a new rhythm. The lake turned green again, clear enough to see the stones beneath. Mallards cut through the surface, leaving ripples that shimmered in the thin sunlight. The cabin smelled of dry wood and rain. I opened the windows, let the wind in. It carried warmth this time. The same mountains stood where they always had, but they looked softer now, less like walls, more like guardians. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, and realized the change wasn't in the world. It was in me. The anger had settled. The noise was gone. Even guilt, that old echo, had grown quiet. I breathed deep, the air full of pine and promise, and whispered to the morning, "Nature changes, and so do I." And for the first time, I didn't need to prove it. I could just let it be. The number was unfamiliar again, but something in me knew before I answered. "Dad," Ethan said, voice quiet, stripped of performance. "It's me." I stayed silent, letting the sound of his breath fill the space between us. It wasn't the arrogance I remembered. It was something smaller. "I'm working at a warehouse," he said. "Loading trucks. It's not much, but it's mine." He hesitated. "I'm divorced now. I'm renting a room, paying weekly." His tone wasn't defensive, just plain, honest. No manipulation, no show. just a man standing in the wreckage, trying to build again. For the first time, his words didn't carry the weight of expectation. They carried humility. And humility, in a man who's fallen, sounds a lot like hope. "Good," I said softly. "Keep going." He didn't cry. Neither did I. But when the line went silent, I realized maybe this was the sound of growing up. A week later, he called again. "I know I don't deserve it," he said. "But could we start over?" The wind pressed against the cabin windows, slow and steady, like it was listening. I didn't answer right away. I just looked out at the lake, at the sunlight breaking through the trees. His breathing came through the line, uneven, human, real. "I'm not asking for money," he added quickly. "Just a chance to talk." I rested my hand against the doorframe, feeling the rough wood Linda once sanded smooth. "Ethan," I said, voice low but steady, "there's no safety net anymore. Not between us." Silence. Then a small sound, maybe understanding, maybe loss. "You hear me?" I said. "Yeah," he whispered. "I hear you." That was enough, for both of us. Before he could speak again, I said what needed saying. "Next time you're in trouble, don't call me first. Call the police, or your boss, or whoever you wronged." He started to protest, but I cut him off. "Be responsible. Don't owe anyone your story. Live small, live honest, earn your way back." His breath hitched, half pride, half shame. "And Ethan," I added, softer now, "make it right before you talk about love again. Pay your dues before you ask forgiveness." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The line carried only the faint hum of distance, the miles between who we were and who we could still become. "Dad," he started, but I didn't let him finish. I ended the call first. Because sometimes love means saying the hardest thing, then walking away before it gets easy again. That night, the fire in the hearth burned low, the kind that hums like a heartbeat. I sat there with my phone in my hand, staring at his name, Ethan Whitmore. My thumb hovered over it for a long time, then I pressed block. Delete contact. Gone. Just like that. The screen went blank, and so did the weight inside my chest. It didn't feel cruel. It felt necessary. For years, that name had been a lifeline and a chain at the same time. Now it was neither. I leaned back, exhaling deeper than I had in months. The room felt bigger, the air lighter. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just the quiet sound of breathing without guilt. I watched the flames lick at the last of the wood, sparks curling into blackness, and whispered, "You're free, son. And so am I." I used to think forgiveness meant open doors and second chances. But faith, real faith, teaches something harder. Forgiveness isn't the same as permission. You can pray for someone and still keep your distance. You can love without funding their downfall. Every night I still say his name, not out of regret, but release. God, guide him, but keep me strong enough to stay out of your way. It's a simple prayer, but it carries weight. I keep my wallet shut, my door locked, my heart open just enough for mercy to pass through. I've stopped asking for things to be fixed. I've started trusting that some things are meant to stay broken. Peace over guilt. That's the trade I finally learned to make. And in that quiet surrender, faith feels like strength again. The next morning I cleared off my old workbench, the one Linda called my thinking table. I tightened the loose bolts, sanded the rough edges, wiped away dust like wiping history clean. The frame of her photo caught the light, polished and golden again. Her smile, steady, kind, looked back at me from the past. I hung my old tools on the pegboard, each one exactly where it belonged. The hammer, the plane, the square, all symbols of work that builds, not breaks. Then I took a small scrap of wood and carved a note into it. No rescue, only love. I nailed it to the wall above the bench. When I stepped back, something in my spine straightened. The room, the tools, the man, they all belonged together again. After years of bending to guilt, I finally stood tall. Linda would have smiled at that. Morning at Tahoe was cold enough to bite. the kind of chill that wakes the soul before the body. I walked the gravel path beside the lake, boots crunching softly under pine needles. A lone fisherman rowed out through the mist, his oars cutting slow, steady ripples through glassy water. The scent of pine resin mixed with wet earth. It smelled like honesty. I stopped near a fallen log, closed my eyes, and listened. The birds, the oars, the soft lap of water against rock. No phone, no noise, no chaos. For years, silence used to scare me. It felt like loneliness, but now it just felt clean, like a reset button pressed by nature itself. No anger, no regret, just breath and wind, and the quiet understanding that peace doesn't shout, it whispers. For the first time, I wasn't haunted by what had happened. I just let the lake hold it for me. As I walked back to the cabin, memories hit like slow waves. Every check I'd written, every lie I'd excused, every just this one time I'd whispered to justify saving Ethan again. I told myself it was love, but it wasn't. It was fear. Fear of losing my son. Fear of being the father who gave up. Truth is, I wasn't saving him. I was saving myself from guilt. That realization stung more than his betrayal ever did. The rescuer in me wasn't noble. He was just scared. And maybe that's what most men my age never say out loud. We confuse control with care. Standing there, watching sunlight slice through pine branches, I actually laughed. A quiet, tired laugh. Love isn't fear, I said to no one but the wind. Then I smiled at my own foolishness, because admitting the truth, even late, still counts as growth. That evening, I sat at my desk with a fresh page and a black pen. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't writing to Ethan. I was writing to myself. At the top, I wrote, "Rules for Jack Whitmore. Love rightly, not blindly. Speak truth, even when it stings. Don't rescue adults, they have to swim. Protect your boundaries, they're sacred. Pray instead of paying for peace." Simple lines, but each carried years of bruises beneath it. I read them out loud, steady and slow, like promises carved in wood. Then I signed my name at the bottom, firm hand, clean ink. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about clarity. And as the firelight flickered across the page, I realized something quiet and powerful. This was the first contract I'd ever made that would actually save someone, me. The phone buzzed again, an unknown number. For a second, I almost didn't look. But habit dies hard. The digits glowed, familiar but uncertain. I waited, let it ring. Then a soft beep, and his voice filled the room. "Hey, Dad. It's me. Just wanted you to know I'm okay. Got a steady job, paying rent, no help needed." A pause, then, "I'm figuring it out." The message ended. No begging, no manipulation. Just a man, my son, standing on his own 2 feet for the first time. I sat there holding the phone, feeling something shift inside. Not pride exactly, not relief, something simpler, peace. For years, every call meant crisis. Every silence meant fear. But this one, this silence after his words, it felt safe. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. For the first time, I wasn't afraid for him. And that, more than anything, felt like freedom. Sunday came quiet and golden. I sat in the back pew of the little chapel downtown, the one Linda used to love. The choir started softly, voices rising like morning light through stained glass. It was her song, "It Is Well With My Soul." The same hymn she hummed while painting the cabin walls. My throat tightened. I closed my eyes, let the harmony pour through me like warm rain over old stone. When the chorus swelled, I whispered, "Thank you." Not to anyone in particular, just to her, to God, to time itself. Through the rainbow glass, sunlight hit the aisle, glowing red and gold, and for a brief moment, I saw her, Linda, smiling the way she used to when the world made sense. Not a ghost, not a vision, just peace wearing her face. That was enough. That was grace. That night, I walked the cabin one last round before bed, checked the locks, reset the code. The wood creaked in the cold, familiar and safe. The fire hummed steady. I poured a small glass of bourbon, Sarah's anniversary bottle, untouched since that night, and let it burn clean down my throat. I wrote a single line in my journal. Home is safe again. Not just the cabin, the man who lived in it. No ghosts, no guilt, just warmth, flickering across walls I built with love and reclaimed with pain. The wind outside rattled the glass, but it didn't bother me anymore. I smiled, closed the book, and watched the embers fade into the quiet rhythm of belonging. The mountain had its peace back, and so did I. The wind whispered through the pines as I stepped onto the porch. The stars hung thin over Tahoe, scattered like forgotten prayers. A lone owl called somewhere in the dark, and I listened, calm and still. Every piece of this mountain had seen me break and rebuild and finally breathe. I thought of Ethan, not with anger, not even sadness, just acceptance. Some men have to fall to learn the ground is solid. I looked up toward the ridge where the dawn would come soon and said it out loud, firm and final. No more bottom feeders, starting with me. Because the truth is, I'd been feeding off guilt, off control, off pain dressed as love. But not anymore. The wind carried my words away like ashes into morning, and I knew, whatever came next, I'd earned this peace. Here's the truth I bled to learn. Love isn't rescue. I spent years throwing money and mercy at a problem that needed consequences. Boundaries aren't cold. They're grown man love. They say, I'll stand with you, but I won't stand in for you. When my son tried to twist the story, I named it gaslighting. When I kept paying for the life that was killing him, I named that too, enabling. It doesn't explode, it erodes. Slow, quiet, deadly. So I chose something harder than saving, letting go. I still pray for him. I still love him. But I love him honestly now, without the lie that my wallet can fix what only truth and time can. The hardest love is the kind that lets go. If this hit close to home, tell me what boundary you wish you'd held. Drop "I choose boundaries" in the comments so I know you're with me. Subscribe and stay, because some stories don't end. They grow. And if you're standing on that line tonight, I'm standing there with you.